The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is August the 4th, Monday, 2025. Welcome, everybody. We are live here at CHD TV. Right, well, let's start off talking about Zen Honeycutt. Many of you love Zen. You know Zen. She a host on CHD TV. She's a guest always on CHD TV. Well, tragically, her son, Ben, beautiful Ben, aged 22 years old, passed away a few days ago. And I know all of you will be sending so much love and prayers to Zen and her family. She needs that right now. This is just a great sadness. And she says, with heavy hearts, she shares this heartbreaking news of the passing of Ben Honeycutt, beloved son of our founder and director, Zen Honeycutt. This is Mums Across America. So there is a GoFundMe. We don't do this at CHD TV as a rule, but this is, I think, something that if you can get involved. Look, there's beautiful Ben with the glasses right there. That's next to his brother Bodhi. Some of you remember that Bodhi was an intern for CHD TV for some time a few years ago. Beautiful family. This is really tragic. And so just send so much love to Zen. Support Mums Across America if you can. This is her passion, and she just fights so hard for us all in every level. We love you, Zen, if you're listening, and there are no words to describe the pain that you're going through. So just know you have so much love from Children's Health Defense and all the big family around CHD. And yes, like I said, we're going to put the GoFundMe in, or send go in the link here in the notes. And so if you can help out, please do, because she really needs our help, and especially our love and prayers. So very sad news to start off Monday morning with. Again, Zen, if you're listening, we love you so much. And if there's anything we can do for you, please just contact us. Okay, let's talk about our conference. I'm going to put my glasses on here. We have some new speakers, everybody. So let's get those speakers up on the screen. We have, well, obviously Mary Holland. We have Suzanne Humphreys coming in, especially for this conference. Very excited about that. And I know what she's going to be talking about, and you're not going to want to miss that. Peter McCullough, Pierre Corey, we love our Pierre Corey. Andy Wakefield making a comeback to the conference. I know he is also going to be talking about something pretty fiery as well. Leslie Manukin, we adore all these people. Dr. Meryl Nass and Dr. Ben Edwards. I know so many of you are going to want to meet Dr. Ben Edwards. He's my hero of the year. I mean, what he did, treating those measles and those kids, staying so calm, catching measles after 2 MMRs, and still, yeah, there's no better hero of the year than Dr. Ben Edwards, and more as well. So press on Moment of Truth. It's here in Austin, Texas, November the 7th to the 9th. Pretty much all of CHD staff is going to be there. So you're going to meet so many people, especially those behind the scenes, like our Lou. He will be there. And we will be streaming it as well if you can't make it. But I think there's more details to come on that. But if you can come, we want to meet you, give you a big hug. And, I think Zen's coming as well. So I know you're going to want to give her a hug. But anyway, there's the conference. Now, this story, this aluminum autism story, this Danish study, we're not going to allow this study to be buried, this fraudulent study. So we have Karl Jablonowski back, our senior research scientist from Children's Health Defense, back on this morning, all the way from England. He's in England at the moment. Thank you for being with us this morning, Karl, to give us an update. So Bobby's responded. What else has happened?
Right. So Secretary Kennedy published an opinion piece in Trial Site News, and it was a pretty thorough and scathing commentary on this very flawed and, in my opinion, fraudulent aluminum study. And he touched on many ways in which this study is faulty. And shortly thereafter, MSN wrote a response, and it was honestly a response to be expected. They had excuses for all of the, the problems in the original paper. They presented a response that, if you didn't think too hard about, would be a reasonable response. But I'm going to jump to the point. They danced around the elephant in the room when they wrote that piece. They did not mention at all the data in Anderson's supplemental figure 11, the data that shows that even in this study that looks like it was designed not to find harm, they designed the study to not find that aluminum-based vaccines cause disease. They still found that aluminum-based vaccines are associated with disease. The MSN article tore down practically everything else, and the only part of statistics that they touched on was the Asperger signal. So in their own data, I think it was figure 4, they show that kids who were born on or after 2007 had a 67% greater chance of developing Asperger's per milligram of aluminum. Now, there aren't very many kids who have that, so the confidence intervals were very large. However, the lowest end of the confidence interval is still above 1. So in essence, what MSN is saying is that, well, it's too small a number and you're only barely above statistical significance. And I know that's jargon, statistical significance, but it is what scientists live by. We have decided that, we need to be 95% confident that something is associated with another thing in order to actually say that. And the data, it's confusing to talk about this because usually I say the authors, however, the authors are denying the signal. So the author's data shows that Asperger's is over 95% confident association with added aluminum. Now, they sort of dismiss this. The MSN article tries to dismiss this by saying this is classical multiple comparison problems, where when you run dozens of analyses, something is going to pop up at random. The problem with that is that Asperger's is has a higher association with more aluminum in absolutely every single figure they produce for this paper. So it doesn't even make sense that they're dismissing it out of hand. The MSN article makes other problems, but I think that the biggest alarm bell is, no, they don't mention the nearly 10 per 10,000 children who are vaccinated in Denmark, according to the author's data, are going to develop neurodevelopmental problems associated with a higher aluminum exposure. And it's just maddening that is the voice of mainstream media. At the same time, it's validating because they don't have an explanation for why, even in this study that was designed not to find harm, they still found harm. And I mean, when you start to read this paper, it reads like the worst case of science fiction. It wasn't written for us. It wasn't written for scientists. It wasn't written for, parents of the vaccine injured. This article was purely written to mechanize the machinery of media to propagate this misinformation.
And Bobby's really speaking, he's on our side with this.
Yeah, yes, he is absolutely on our side and has echoed every single point that we are echoing. There are, for an example of how flawed this study is, it looks at kids up until their 5th birthday. for neurodevelopmental disease. This is a Denmark. This is socialized medicine. And I know most of the viewers of Good Morning CHD are American, so we, including I, don't really understand what it's like to live in a country where the medicine is socialized. It takes forever to see a specialist. Most kids in Denmark who are going to be diagnosed with these neurodevelopmental conditions are not going to be diagnosed until age 7, 8, 12. I mean, further down the line. And I spoke with Dr. Manica about this, and she said it's like looking for mountains on flat land. And that is a really good analogy. And as much as I can be, beaten down that media is not picking this up, what really inspires me is the unified international scientific response to this. In Denmark alone, doctors Manica and Schmeling and Stable Ben and Abby. In England, we have Koshi and Exley. In Czech Republic, we have Dr. First. Germany, Kubenbender, France, Crapeau, and even Canada, we have Dr. Shaw. I can't even fathom how many scientists in the United States are highlighting all of the faults of this study. But one was what did catch my. It was Dr. Sarskis' son. She's a UCLA medical professor, and she submitted comments to the journal itself. This is a failure of peer review and contributes to mistrust of academic internal medicine. And she's absolutely right. The design by itself is faulty.
Are they going to, what's got to happen is they've got to retract the study and say they're sorry, they made a mistake. Oops, we did it all wrong. We can't just allow this to continue. We have to keep putting the pressure on.
Well, it should be pretty interesting. Unfortunately, the journal is the seat of power here. And one of the tools that people in power have is the power to ignore. And it's possible Annals of Internal Medicine can just ignore every drumbeat that we can beat to say that this is a flawed study and needs to be retracted. Ideally, you would give the authors a chance to correct. However, if you gave the authors a chance to correct, they would have to say in their manuscript that aluminum absorbed vaccines do not cause disease. And Annals of Internal Medicine would never have published that paper in the first place.
Karl Jablonowski, thank you so much for coming on this morning and updating us. And I know to the viewers, he will continue to come on as we have updates. We are not going to let this story die. It's too important. And so thank you for all your work as well into exposing this.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, look, everybody, now we have live on Anna Chulaki, and she is, well, Anna, come on to the show. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, CHD, and good morning, Polly. It's amazing to be talking to you.
Lovely to have you on this morning. So you have quite an incredible story, and you are from the Soviet Union. You're from Russia, right?
Yes. I immigrated to the US from Russia, and I was born and raised in the Soviet Union, in the ex-Soviet Union.
And so about how long ago did you move to America?
I moved in 93, and then my daughter Sonia was born in 97. So I got pregnant 3 years after immigration. It was, it was a journey, with the big journey for somebody from a very different culture, a very different medical system. So it was a big journey to give birth, to prepare for birth. And most of it was actually very exciting and wonderful, because there was so much literature about home birth, about natural birth. Then there was a lot of support for breastfeeding, which I did not have in Russia, fantastic literally group that I joined here and learned so much from. The biggest shock came from her vaccination at 8.5 months old. I want to thank somebody, a woman whose face or name or anything I don't remember at all now from the La Leche League, but she did bring up in the La Leche League meeting or conversations, she did bring up the potential injury from vaccines, and until that moment, I didn't have any inkling that was possible. So my older son who was born in Russia, and he was vaccinated, and I never paid attention to, it just wouldn't enter your mind and something might be amiss there.
What did she have at that time? So 8.5 months. What vaccines did they give her back then?
She had 4 vaccines at the time, because I heard something in the La Leche League meeting very early after birth. She probably had vitamin K because something was given to her on the second day after birth. We had a home birth, and then they told us to go to the hospital as soon as possible. So on the second day, I brought her to the hospital for some procedure. I presume that probably was that probably was vitamin K if it was given at that time already. And then, so I was that unaware of anything that could be amiss with any procedures to kids. And then between that second day and 8.5 months, I already heard something about vaccination risks. And I became aware of it. I haven't read anything, but that's why I did not vaccinate until 8.5 months. I was just thinking, oh, I'll just wait. And I don't remember what made me go to see the doctor, the pediatrician, at 8.5 months, but I guess that was my first or second visit to that doctor. And he bullied me. It was a very, very first time I was ever bullied here in this country. He accused me of being a bad mother, not vaccinating my child, making her vulnerable to diseases, or I don't know. It was really, really scary. And he gave her 4 vaccines: Hib, hepatitis B, DTP, and poliovirus. And she started screaming right there. And she was screaming for hours. I don't remember how many hours. It was very scary. It was unusual. It never happened with my son. And then the next day, she had a high fever, and then she developed ear infections. So we went back to the doctor, and he, of course, yelled at me again, and just didn't believe that there was any connection to vaccination. And after that, I got really, I believe I stopped going to regular pediatricians. We went maybe a few times during her childhood at all for physicals. One time she needed antibiotics, so we went to see a pediatrician. But basically, I switched to the alternative medicine. It was a bit easy for me because in general, even in Soviet Union, in Russia, there was still a lot of herbalism, kind of in general population. People believed in herbs. People still believed in healing illnesses. It wasn't as medicated. The society wasn't medicated to this extent. And so we just switched to alternatives, mostly to homeopathy and osteopathy, original osteopathy. I had fantastic doctors, so she never was without doctors, oversight.
Anna, after she had the reaction to those ghastly injections that she had at 8.5 months, what did she have any more afterwards? Or was that it? Did you just say, I'm done?
I believe we didn't give her any. That period of time is really kind of messy in my mind. I believe I got scared so much that I remember looking for homeopaths, like searching, finding a good doctor and alternative doctor. And I do know that she went to 6 years. There might have been a vaccine there in that period of time, like in the first couple of years, but I was so scared that I really doubt.
Were you scared of you were scared of the pediatrician and of the
Both. I was scared of her reaction. I believe that it was reaction to vaccine. I already was aware. I did not really delve into books on vaccination. That was kind of unusual for me because I read everything I could read on the birth, home birth, and on the lactation, on nursing. But I was, it's my husband, I was very,
anything can happen, don't worry.
but the vaccines, it seemed very technical and scary. And also, I believe, the fact that they already attacked anti-vaxxers in press and everywhere, I kind of wanted to stay away from this. But we just went with no vaccines, no doctor's visits, no regular doctor visits, because I did get questions when we went for physical for school. But we had a really interesting physical when she was 6. Basically, she, after that first reaction, she developed a series of ear infections, and that's what it was actually very difficult. It wasn't life-changing in the way autism probably would have been, but it was really, really tough for the family. But we eventually figured out the diet that, was helping. Originally we excluded eggs and soy and dairy, but eventually it became just no dairy. And it kind of helped.
Today, so she's what, 30?
No, she's 28.
28. Okay, my math is terrible. Oh, she's 28. Okay. And so how is she today?
She's doing great. She's doing great. She did have vaccines before her college. She did have a battery. It wasn't as big. It was a couple of vaccines, and she did have a strong reaction to MMR. Shot very high fever. But, and I do believe she had a period of time with, when her immune system again kind of dipped after that. But
does she understand the reality of vaccines? going forward, I presume she'll be a mother one day. Is she there?
It is very complex. The COVID kind of had a big problem before COVID, and that was that. So I guess, it's a learning curve.
It is a learning curve, and many, many parents in the same situation as you, especially during COVID. So Anna, let's just talk for a second about the fact that you grew up in Russia, and now you live in America. And with all of the things that went on during COVID and all of the crazy pediatricians being paid to vaccinate our children, the rules, the regulations, what are you seeing between Russia and here in America?
It's very interesting. I do believe there were vaccines there, and I think they were similar. They were not MMR vaccines, but they were similar to Johnson Johnson vaccine, that type of, I forgot what the technology is, but they had both that and the more traditional vaccines, and they did force people. There was a lot of pressure to vaccinate. Mask-wise, I know that there was much lighter situation there in Russia. And in terms of people's awareness, I think people right now, the younger generation, even there is more medication kind of prone. There's more medications available, but I know that the herbalism still kind of lives on. There's even in my time and now in the pharmacies in Russia, or Soviet Union, then you could buy a lot of herbal remedies. And the same thing is in some European countries, maybe most European countries. You can buy a lot more of herbal remedies. Moscow has a lot of homeopathic apothecaries, pharmacies. Still a lot of alternative medicine, and people believe in that. So,
and what would be your message to the young mum, maybe watching this program, and maybe a bit like your daughter, not really quite sure which way to go because the pressure, watching mainstream news, the pediatricians, all of those kind of things. What would be your personal, Anna, to that young mum advice?
Please be careful. Please be. Do a lot of research. There's a lot of literature now. In my time when I was giving birth, and after that, there was not as much in terms of literature about vaccines. Now there's much more. There's much more awareness. There's Ph.D. There's a lot more other things to watch and to absorb, please do it, because not only a good birthing experience, not only nursing is extremely important, but also to not over medicating your child.
And you raise a good point, Anna. I mean, it's all a big lie when you look back at how we were, pregnant mums back in the day, right through to cutting the cord so fast. I mean, we were encouraged actually that formula food is better than breast milk. I mean, it's all such a big lie from beginning to end.
Yes, but a lot more is written. I think a lot more is available in libraries and online about benefits of natural birth, benefits of lactation, versus not really doing a lot of allopathic procedures. Those are still very harder. That's harder to read about and harder to get your hands on.
Well, Anna, we want to thank you so much for coming on and talking about your story. And we're so glad that you live here with us in America now. And so pleased that your daughter turned out fine. And we pray that she continues to delve into the dangers of vaccines. But thank you so much for coming on to the show this morning and talking to us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Anna. All right, everybody, now we're going to go to our mothers-to-be section with Christiane Northrup, the last one that I recorded with her. And then we're going to go to our medical professional story of the day. We're going to be covering medical professionals all month. And I think they're strong, these interviews. And I think it's important that people listen and share those interviews. These are well-qualified doctors telling us the dangers of vaccination. So anyway, Michael Caine will be with you tomorrow. And Meryl Nass is starting her new weekly segment on the crisis of the food. So I know you're going to enjoy that as well. And that's both tomorrow. And I'll see you on Wednesday morning. Welcome to Mothers to Be. I'm standing in for Isabella Yon this week, who still has morning sickness. And I'm here with Dr. Northrup to answer many questions that you're all sending into Mothers to Be. Do continue sending those questions in and we will get you the help that you need. But the first thing people are asking, they want to talk about, they take a pregnancy test and they do have a miscarriage. So can you talk about why that might happen? And people should, I presume, not think that that's it. They're never going to have another child, be afraid to get pregnant again.
Right. So before COVID, the miscarriage rate was 1 in 6. That's just standard. What happened when they rolled out the shot is that the miscarriage rate just skyrocketed. And my colleague, Dr. James Thorpe, maternal fetal medicine, has documented all of this beyond a shadow of a doubt. But if you have detoxed from maybe any shot that you got and so on, there is no reason to believe that you will have another miscarriage. I just see it as, okay, there was probably something genetically wrong. This is what nature does. And therefore, you've been spared. So what you want to do is, this is the perfect time now to get your body into beautiful shape for this next pregnancy. So think of it as, okay, we didn't get the puck into the goal on the first shot, but we're going to try again. But let's wait 3 months in order to replenish the soil completely, but also, by the way, to grieve the loss of this miscarriage. Because what I have found is that women grieve a miscarriage to the same degree as they grieve a full-born baby, a full-term baby. And so, but what our culture does is we skip over it. We go, oh, no, don't worry. You can have another one. It's like, when you have to put down your cat or your dog and someone says, well, just get a puppy. Well, no, you cannot replace what was lost without putting it on top of a load of grief. So go deeply into that grief. And then, by the way, tell someone what you're most afraid of. Don't silence it. Don't try to think you should be somewhere you're not. I want you to say to another human being, I am absolutely terrified that I will never be able to get pregnant again. That's called confession. That's called confession. And that's why that's been in the church. It's not how they've used it. They've used it as, oh, I'm a miserable, shameful person, get out the flail. No. But you say, this is what I'm afraid of. Then God has the ability then to come in to you, the indwelling Holy Spirit, and say, okay, you've confessed what you're afraid of, but you are a being made in the image of God. So let me go to work on this. So tune in to your inner wisdom, your intuition. I call it the Holy Spirit working in you, which we can have a direct relationship with, without a priest, without a pastor. You're made in the image of God. You're designed to be able to talk to God. We've been talked out of that pretty early on by religion. So then you get in touch with this Holy Spirit and then pay attention to the kind of things that from that frequency, from that point of attraction, okay, I'm a being made in the image of God. This one wasn't good. I'm being protected. Now, what do you want me to know, God, about the next one? What do you want? How do you want me to think about it? Don't go with, have you ever heard the term whying is dying? Okay. Why did this happen? What did I do wrong? That will lead to death. Instead, you go with, what do you want me to know about it? What do you want me to think about it? How do I then go about the next thing? You know, there's an interesting song I think about Winona Judd sings. How do I live without you? How do I? And you literally ask that question. And if you do it from the depths of your grief, the body has an ability to process grief and pain. There's 3 ways it's organic: movement, sound, and tears. If you let yourself go all the way into the devastation of that loss and feel it in every cell of your body, I swear to you, I've seen this a million times, you're going to come out of it laughing. You come out of it laughing because you have the ability to do this in your body. It's how you were made.
That's really lovely advice. Thank you for that. So we have a viewer here that's asking about the group B strep in pregnancy. Is this test necessary? And if positive, do they have to take antibiotics? We didn't have any of this in our day.
We did. We had this.
I don't know.
And it's great that you didn't. But this was a big deal. And what it has to do with is when you have group B strep, it's very, very rare. But when a baby is born with that and doesn't have good immunity, it can result in fetal death. So it's very real, but it's very, very rare. So now this is one of those things where each individual is going to have to deal with this on her own. If you get the test and it's positive, it's going to put you into a fear cycle of, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then if you take the antibiotics, it's going to mess with your microbiome and that of your baby. So which do you trust more? And I would never tell you what you should do in that case. But I ran into this over and over and over in practice. And then, you would take the swab and do the test and, and try to do it as close to delivery as possible so that you were all covered. And I swear to you, I think it would just be better if you just swabbed the vagina with some betadine when the baby was born. Iodine kills just about everything and it's pretty benign. So if it were me personally, I wouldn't get the test because, here's the problem with our brains. Once it's like a worm in the brain and it's constantly making you worried. It's like, oh my God, my blood sugar is 100, but it should be 99. And then with your creative ability, because we humans are so creative, we'll create the thing we're most afraid of.
The next thing, there's some woman wrote in and said that she's 32 years old and she's pregnant, and they're calling her geriatric.
Oh my God. Okay. Okay.
Let's just talk about that for a second.
Oh my God. All right. Now, I remember as a young OBGYN, this is funny. And if you had a 32 or 33-year-old person come in pregnant, I remember, this is so dumb, Polly, but it's funny. I'm like 21 years old, 22. I'm a med student. And a woman comes in who's 32 years old and pregnant. And we're all thinking, oh my God, she's so brave. Oh my God. So I remember doing lectures on pregnancy over 35. Like that was a big deal. Now I want to tell you how to think about this. Many of today's 40-year-olds are biologically younger than some of today's 29-year-olds. It all depends not on your chronologic age, but your biologic age. This term, geriatric pregnancy, is medical hexing at its most severe. I can't stand the term because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. 32 years old, are you kidding me? A geriatric pregnancy. Listen, I don't want to even go personally to a geriatric doctor. My mother was a major athlete, and when she messed up her knee playing tennis, age 52, my then husband was an orthopedic surgeon. They were just going to put a cast on it. They were not going to repair the knee, thinking that she was the average 52-year-old who was never going to do anything in her life again. She went to Mount Everest Base Camp at the age of 84, 100 miles straight up. So my husband said to the surgeon, treat her like she's 25. Repair that knee. So this is about a mindset. I almost, if I were going to an OB who had on the chart geriatric pregnancy for a 32-year-old, I would feel like I had to leave that practice. Yeah.
No. I want to get your advice on RhoGAM. We've had people coming on talking about RhoGAM before, and it's sort of confusing. But I will say this: I interviewed a woman who she believes that after taking the RhoGAM that she lost her baby from that. How dangerous is that RhoGAM shot?
You know, I am Rh negative, so I know this very, very well. And I would not get the RhoGAM shot at all in pregnancy. I would, if you're Rh negative and you know that the baby's going to be Rh positive. How do you know that? You have the father's blood type tested. So I made sure to know. And my husband was homozygous for Rh positive. So I knew, because I was O negative, I knew that 100% of my children would be Rh positive, which means that I was at risk for being sensitized to the Rh factor. When I had my first baby, it was a retained placenta, and he dug it out. So then I got what's called a Kleihauer-Bedke test to determine what percentage of a fetal maternal bleed I had in my body. And it was huge. And I had to call the state lab, and I got 7 vials of RhoGAM, used all of the stuff for Massachusetts that weekend. And because I didn't want to get sensitized for the next baby. However, the conversation has changed, and I wouldn't get the RhoGAM in the first pregnancy until postpartum. And then I would get 1 shot. Now, you might want to avoid it altogether, especially with the blood supply that we have right now. But then you're risking that you may be sensitized to get hydrophytalis, from your body making antibodies against an Rh positive baby in a subsequent pregnancy. That said, there are many women who don't get RhoGAM and they're fine. It all depends on if there is a fetal maternal bleed that is substantial. Generally, there won't be in a normal labor and birth, but there could be, which is why 1 vial of RhoGAM after the first pregnancy with an Rh positive baby. But check it out. If the father is heterozygous for the Rh factor, like he's got 1 allele that's positive, 1 negative, then you got a 50-50 chance that the baby is negative and there's no problem. So
Thank you for that. Now, I know it's kind of ridiculous me asking this, but it is a question that's come in. Are there any vaccines a pregnant woman should take? I mean, come on. I mean, I can't believe we're even having this conversation.
people ask me this stuff all the time. Should I take a shingles shot? Should I, like, okay, can I tell you this? No shots, no shots. I want to be the immunization of your life. The minute you're thinking, are there anything that's safe in pregnancy that is an injection, that is a vaccine? The answer is no, no, no. And I've just been talking with James Thorpe, and we have been having a metanoia where we are doing repentance for what we didn't know. And he said, I recommended DPT and flu shot to pregnant women up until 2010. I was horrified that they were even doing it starting in the 1990s. So when you know better, you do better, but you are going to be coerced into this because the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, which no longer knows what a woman is telling you to do this. One of my goals in life with Jim Thorpe and another woman OBGYN is to take on our parent organization, the American College of OBGYN, of which I was a proud fellow, up until the last 5 years when I said to them, I cannot be associated with you. No shots in pregnancy, no shots in babies, no shots in humans, none. Now, you know Paul Thomas's work. He did his 10-year study. He wrote the vaccine-friendly plan. God love him. He was trying to make it friendly. And he found out data that even shocked him. The healthiest kids were the ones who hadn't had a single shot.
Can I ask you about vitamin A? Because I personally have a massive problem with that from interviewing so many parents that their children go on, they're unvaccinated children, but something's off with them. And the parents like, yes, they had the vitamin A. Something's off with that vitamin A they give the babies at birth, for sure.
That I have not heard. I have not heard that, but I'm not surprised. I'm not, oh, you mean vitamin K?
Yeah, sorry. Did I say vitamin? I'm
No,
going
there's there's something off with the vitamin K. No question. That's another one I would avoid. You're supposed to, in babies, you're supposed to have a low vitamin K. You're supposed to, so that the blood flows nicely. Now, another thing, while I'm here, I advocated for years to delay cord clamping. The umbilical cord is an organ, and it is supposed to be giving the baby nutrients and blood from the placenta while the baby's body is going through the most massive physiologic change it will ever go through, which is moving from being fed by the mother's blood to being fed by air. When the baby takes its first breath, there's this incredible thing that happens where, the ductus arteriosus closes down and the AV stuff in the heart closes down. And the umbilical cord is God's way of saying to the baby, don't worry, while you're learning how to do this, we're going to keep you supplied over here. It's like you don't learn to swim by being thrown in the water. It's traumatic. Well, you shouldn't learn to breathe by being asphyxiated by a sudden cord clamping, where it brings into your body panic and trauma. If you let the cord stop on its own and let the baby be fully born into 3D human life, then all these interventions that they do, silver nitrate in the eyes or antibiotics in the eyes, come on, if you don't have gonorrhea, you don't need that. All the things we do, vitamin K, all of it, we don't need to do it. But if you give birth in a hospital, you will be pressured, which means you should never be left alone, because if you've just been through labor and birth, all of your insides are on the outside. You are so vulnerable by design so that you can be maximally receptive to this new baby, where all your focus is on falling in love with the new baby. And then you got some nurse coming in, holding a bottle of formula, baby's crying, and she's going, you sure you want to breastfeed? I mean, pregnant women are so vulnerable. And postpartum, they're so vulnerable. So you need a very strong figure standing with you. It can be a fierce woman. I'd love it to be a fierce father who just stands with the woman and says, not on my watch. You can be very nice about it. There are beautiful people working in hospitals, beautiful. They're stuck in a difficult system right now, but no vitamin K.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I'm sorry I said vitamin A. I've been too many measles stories.
I understand, yes.
Somebody's asking about routine tests. It's like a barrage of, you need to come in for some more blood taken. Again, I don't remember this when I was having babies, but now it's a big thing. Is this a money-making thing? Do they have to?
Of course it is. Here's what I've always said. Okay. Well baby checks. Well baby checks are nothing more than an invitation to indoctrinate your child into the medical industrial complex. That's all they are. You don't need to come in for any of that stuff. But what have we done? We have completely decimated the nuclear family. So no one has the grandmother around who knew a thing or two. And so therefore, we've made the doctor into the grandmother, which was a bad substitution. And all of this maternal, grandmotherly, Mother Earth knowledge has been cut off, but it's still living in your cells. This is the good news. It didn't go away. It's still there. And we're all waking up and remembering it. So you don't need to keep going in there. I remember my kids, they were like 6 and 8. Are we ever going to the doctor? No, you're not. You don't need to.
We have a viewer talking about she's being pressured into having a C-section, and they don't seem to give her any explanation of why she needs one, but it's sort of the routine. What's going on with all these C-sections? Again, I mean, our day, I think it was when it was a real emergency, money.
No, it's money. No, money and convenience. Convenience. I remember a study in the New England Journal of Medicine, you probably can't find it anymore, that determined the time when most C-sections were done. And it was Wednesday before the afternoon golf game, and it was Friday before the weekend. So women are told, you need this because it's very inconvenient to the staff to have you laboring on a Saturday or a Sunday. What determines the time of labor? A signal from the baby's pituitary, a signal from the baby's connection with God. So we mess that up. Satan inverts everything. So the C-section rate is ridiculous. And then they've convinced all these women that that a regular birth, an unmedicated normal birth, is just too much and it will wreck you. You know, it will wreck your vagina, and like breastfeeding will wreck your breasts and all of this stuff. Wreck you for what? Being a porn star? So that's why they do it. And to this day, like I told you, all the fetal monitoring, all that did was increase the C-section rate. And I was there and I watched it. I watched it. And it's the same with this other, what I used to do, we'd had to go up a floor in the hospital, get in, put the woman in the elevator, take her up to the OR, call in the staff. I'd put the fetal monitor on. They'd prep her for surgery. I'd put the monitor on and I'd say, well, let's just see what happens. Because once you tell a woman your baby is in distress, she's going to signal that to the baby, right? So get on your left side, go inside and tell your baby you're okay. I'm your mother. I'll be taking care of you. There are real emergencies, no question. But a lot of them that we're seeing these days are completely what's called iatrogenic, meaning caused by the system. And this C-section, why they're telling her she needs a C-section, what's that about? Or let's look at VBACs, vaginal birth after prior C-section. I came to Maine in the 80s and I was doing those. Then it all stopped. Well, we think they're too dangerous, you know? I'll tell you something, you go in with a second C-section and you look, you can't even see the scar from the first C-section. The uterus is an organ to be respected. So let's respect it.
That's just wonderful advice as always. Just one last question, and I know I've had you for so many weeks now on here and we could have you every week, as I said. People are confused about what they can and can't eat during pregnancy because it's changing the whole time. You can't have tuna, you can't have this, you can't have
Oh my
gluten.
God. Oh
I
my
mean, it goes
goodness.
on and on and on. What do you say to that pregnant mother that's just afraid to eat anything?
I would tell her that she needs to 80% of the time, let's do the 80-20 rule, okay? 80% of the time, eat whole organic food. And you can get tuna, the young tuna that's line caught. It's the older tuna that accumulate the mercury. So you can get the line caught young tuna, and that is just fine. And just eat what your body wants you to eat. Grass-fed beef is good. It's okay if it's finished off with a non-GMO grain. There's all kinds of local farmers. Get your food as much as you can from your local farmers. And then 20% of the time, if you've just had it, call out for a pizza. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think this whole thing goes to fear. I mean, everything is driven
does.
from fear.
Yeah, absolutely. And pray over your food. If it's bad food, especially, pray over it. It changes the food. They've done that with monks. It changes the frequency. Structured water. How do you structure water? You know, it's like, ooh, structured water. Take a spoon, swirl it. That structures it. May put in a tiny pinch of Celtic salt. Say, I bless you to the water. You've structured your water.
Fantastic. Well, now let's remind everyone of your books. So you have what I call the wisdom books.
Yes, I've got Mother-Daughter Wisdom and the Wisdom and Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, my first book. It's in its 5th edition, fully updated in, I think it was 2020. And so fully revised, updated, and then Mother-Daughter Wisdom.
And they can follow you, True North, at Substack.
Yes, and drnorthrup.com. Sign up for my e-news because then you'll sort of get everything that I'm doing these days.
And you're doing fantastic work. I want to thank you personally for all the work you've done over the years and still continue to do for our children, for the future, for the unborn. Thank you, Dr. Northrup.
Thank you, Polly. Thank you.
Okay.
And when it was approved.
All right, we are live.
Yes.
We are. Tell everyone your name.
My name's Jonna Meeks.
And what's your profession?
I am a registered nurse and I work in labor and delivery.
And how long have you been doing that?
17, 18 years now.
So we were discussing earlier that we at Children's Health Defence, for example, have seen a huge increase in people reporting miscarriage, stillbirth. What have you seen in your work?
Definitely an increase in patients coming in with demises early, in the pregnancy as well as up to full term, that we have to deliver their dead babies.
Which is a terrible thing for someone to go through.
And although it is something that historically happens and we really don't know the reasons, I feel like from my experience over the last 17, 18 years, it has definitely, it's almost like double, triple fold. I've never seen so many miscarriages and intrauterine demises before.
And do you know if these women whose babies have died, have they taken the shot, or we just don't know?
I know the majority that, I wish I could have all the stats of that, but the majority of them, if I am their nurse, I can look at their charts. If I'm not their nurse, I cannot. So the ones that I have looked at have been vaccinated at some point. Whether it was before their pregnancy or during the pregnancy, but there is a vaccination.
Yeah, because we were talking about someone potentially that has had a COVID shot before, then gets pregnant, has one at the beginning of pregnancy, and then a booster.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And plus the other vaccines that they're giving to pregnant women.
Yeah.
Because they tend to take them all.
And initially, maybe not initially, but in the middle of them, pushing the vaccine to pregnant women, were learning that it wasn't good to give women prior to 20 weeks. So that wasn't being pushed. But once they were over 20 weeks or prior to pregnancy, they were definitely, you could see in the notes that it was, encourage the vaccine.
And what are you hearing within your hospital or within your colleagues about the babies that are born to vaccinated mothers? Are you seeing anything different with the placentas, or is there anything you're hearing about?
I'm not 100% sure as far as like the placentas, but I'm a conspiracy. It's all a conspiracy. I'm crazy because I taken the data and taken what I know of science and putting the two together and makes sense. But nobody else is kind of thinking that way. And if they are, they're not expressing it. If I have a belief and I've got data to back me up on, then I'm not going to buckle. Now, if I don't have the data and you're presenting me with, these things, then I will look for the data, which is why I did not get vaccinated, because from the beginning, it was almost like having to go to the, dark web to find this information because they were censoring everything. But the information was out there about the vaccination and how, in 2 years from 2020, we were going to see deaths, miscarriages, heart problems. What do you know? 3 years later, every bit of that has come true.
What about the placenta, blood clots, or anything like that?
So there's been a few moms that have had to have a special team involved in their surgeries for having C-sections because of the moms having extreme blood clots. They were worried for pulmonary embolisms. We did have one mom who died on the table but was brought back, and she did fine, but she was full of clots. And so there's been a few of those that I know of. But placenta-wise, I'm sorry, I don't have.
17 years ago, whenever it is you started out on this journey, did you hear of people with blood clots?
No. It was just not. And I worked in, a few hospitals over the years, and I've never seen so many as I do now of the babies, aborting early or being, doing fine up until the, a few months, and then they die in utero.
Do you think any of these mothers are having this 2-3 shots and then having these stillbirth babies? Do you think that they're putting 2 and 2 together?
I think some of them are, and they're usually the ones that are openly, we'll discuss it, and they'll say, I had to get it because some more in school, or to keep their jobs, and so they got the vaccines, and they obviously regret it. But it's really sad that we were forced into this, and so just to be able to go to school or keep their jobs.
Did they make you have one?
They tried to, but again, I was not going to waver. I had gotten COVID when it first came out, and I just had, mild case of like sinus infection is what it felt like. And so when I returned to work, they wanted us to come to work. If nurses got COVID, they needed to be back to work in 10 days regardless. Where the rest of the country was able to take months off, or at least 2 weeks off. And so we were back to work as soon as we could go back. And then I was told, well, you have to get vaccinated, but because you just had COVID, you got to wait 3 months. And so I said, well, I'm fairly sure that my immune system has built an immunity and I'm not getting the vaccine. And so there was a few of us that were, these crazy nurses that had these, ideas of, vaccines. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. My children have all their vaccinations. I think there's way too many today, but so it was 11 months later that they were accepting the religious exemptions, because there was too many nurses that were either quitting because they didn't want to get the vaccination, and didn't want to lose their jobs, so they went on to a different field, or they got the vaccine and were having issues. So anyway, I waited until I waited until the last minute to either get fired or them accept the exemption. And there were too many nurses that were either quitting and getting sick, so they didn't have very many nurses. We had a very big nursing shortage because of this. It's not because the hospitals were full of sick patients. It's because they didn't have enough staff because of the mandates. And so, I mean, I was willing to lose my job over it.
Thank you for talking to us, especially about the babies. It's really sad. If you look at everything that's going on right now, you know, elderly dropping dead, the babies, it's like you have to say to yourself, this is depopulation. You have to.
Right.
Because I don't understand how else it continues. I don't know.
Yeah.
But killing the unborn,
Yeah.
it's criminal.
Yep. And there's, you know, another conspiracy against, you know, genocide and all that, but
I mean, you can't ignore it. When you listen to the stories like we do, day in and day out, it's the same story over and over again. All right, we still do have more stories. Stand by, everybody, and thank you so much.
The truth is, vaccine injuries are real and they've been ignored.
These childhood vaccinations, the people of America are telling us they are not safe and effective. We are seriously concerned at Children's Health Defense about the disinformation and misinformation out there.
Society does not want to acknowledge vaccine injury, period. My son's life has been ruined physically and emotionally, and he is persecuted for the mere fact that he exists.
After 8 years of litigation, HHS conceded by preponderance of the evidence that Chris died from her HPV vaccinations.
Parents deserve the truth. We deserve real informed consent because no parent should have to live the nightmare I do.
I am heartbroken to hear these stories, and it makes me want to do something.
How about we ban pharmaceutical ads on TV?
I've advocated it, and you have a co-sponsor.
The government has decided that this particular industry doesn't have to be liable to anybody.
I am extremely suspicious, as a lawyer, of immunity that is granted in any blanket way across the board to any manufacturer or to anyone.
So if we're gonna do something, the North Star has gotta be medical freedom. I get to decide what's good for me and my family with proper information. And if I'm given improper information, just like in any other industry, there's gotta be accountability.
No more Pfizer-sponsored science. We need independent science.
I am competing against a pharmaceutical lobby of 1,600 lobbyists. That's 3 lobbyists for each member of Congress. This is insane.
Everybody sitting here, bar 2, vaccinated their families with catastrophic results. Over 12,000 signatures on those 2 buses of death, death, death. When will enough be enough? How many more buses? So this has to stop. And we implore you, please, to follow us at Children's Health Defense, at least break down the truth and get to the truth behind the science of what is really happening.